Many of you have likely wanted to or thought about EDCing a fixed blade, but probably feel like it's inconvenient, cumbersome, or maybe not all that practical. But you'd be wrong. It doesn't have to be that complicated, and here are 7 reasons why you should EDC a fixed blade. The very first reason you should EDC a fixed blade is that fixed blades are inherently more reliable. It's a solid piece of steel with maybe some scales. The folding knives have a ton of moving parts, and fewer moving parts means fewer things to go wrong. You don't have pivot screws or bearings or anything like that, and even if you lose, say, a body screw and the scale comes off of a fixed blade, it can still safely be used as a skeletonized knife. That's not necessarily true of a folding knife. So building on the first point, one of the main reasons you should EDC a fixed blade is they have better strength and durability. You can abuse them more over time and it doesn't really affect the use of the knife. With something like a frame lock knife, every time you open the knife, the lock bar is interfacing with the tang of the blade. And over time, you can develop slop, or what's better known in the knife world as lock rock. So instead of having a solid lockup, your blade literally rocks back and forth. You can also develop lock slip. Both of them are dangerous. If you have a locking knife and it doesn't lock like it should, it's kind of dangerous. On the other end, with a fixed blade, there's nothing to really wear out except for the actual edge of the knife. The only thing you really have to worry about in terms of strength and durability is how long that knife stays sharp. And a clear differentiator between those two is something that for a fixed blade is a pretty simple task usually, but for a folder can totally ruin the knife, and that is batoning. People say you shouldn't baton with a locking knife, and there's a clear reason for that. It puts too much stress on the lock interface in most cases. We saw that when we abused the lander, the NAF's lander last year. We batoned with it, and we developed a little bit of lock rock. With a fixed blade, on the other end, it's a pretty simple task as long as the knife is big enough, the wood's not too hard, whatever. Like, it's just par for the course for a fixed blade. The only things you really have to worry about with a fixed blade wearing out, other than the knife getting dull, is like a sheath just getting loose over time, but that's another issue entirely. We're not talking about sheaths, we're talking about the knife. The next reason you should EDC a fixed blade is strength to weight. And what I mean by that is a solid piece of steel is always going to be stronger than a few pieces of metal stacked and bolted together. More lightweight folders typically give up strength to save ounces by swapping titanium for FRN or Griffin or G10, micarta. All of these things weigh less than metal. They're also not quite as strong. So you inherently get a less strong but more lightweight folding knife. On a fixed blade, that's not necessarily the case because you can just drop the scales and you have a skeletonized knife that's still just as strong as the knife was before the scales came off. You're not having to sacrifice strength, but you can get a lighter weight knife. So what you're actually sacrificing with a fixed blade when it becomes lighter is usually comfortability, ergonomics, things like that, but it's still just as strong as it was before. If you care anything about ergonomics, typically, fixed blades have better ergonomics than folders. And that's not a rule, so to speak, but in general, they just are more comfortable, especially for long-term use or hard use. Fixed blades just feel better, and that's because a lot of them have just solid handles. Meanwhile, with a folder, you have to deal with things like lock bars, thumb studs, pocket clips, gaps between the scales where there may or may not be a back spacer. And all of these things, while they might seem minute, they can cause hot spots or just make a knife that over time is really uncomfortable to use. That's not to say that folders inherently have worse ergonomics than fixed blades. They can have great ergonomics, but the point is that fixed blades by default can have better ergonomics because it's a solid handle and you don't have all these other things in the way. So another reason you should EDC a fixed blade is accessibility, and what I mean by that is how easy it is to get the knife out of the sheath in your hand in a cutting position and then back into the sheath. With a fixed blade, it's easy. You just grab the knife, pull it out of the sheath, and you're in a cutting position already. Use the knife, back in the sheath it goes. It's very simple. With a folder, you have to pull the knife out of your pocket, deploy the knife, adjust your grip, cut, and then put it back. It may not seem like a big difference, but if you were grabbing your knife multiple times a day, it is pretty clear very quickly on that a fixed blade is just a little bit easier. The only thing is it just takes a little bit of getting used to putting it back in the sheath without looking. But as you can see here, it happens pretty easily and you get pretty used to it very quickly. Here's a better example of what I mean by pulling the knife out in a cutting position. You grab the handle of a fixed blade and pull it out and you're ready to cut. Whereas with a folder, you have to pull it out from the pocket, deploy it, adjust, and cut. The only folders or non-fixed blades that I would say are close, you have automatics, but especially OTFs. You can pull the OTF out in the position that you're gonna cut, deploy the knife, cut, put it back in your sheath. You never have to adjust your grip. Another reason to carry a fixed blade over a folder is the number of ways that you can carry it. With a folder, you're basically limited to one way to carry that knife, and that's clipped to the edge of your pocket. Now, of course, there are slips and other things like that you might use with a slip joint, right? It's either loose in your pocket, in a slip, or some sort of organizer. But the point is, it's almost always going to be limited to carrying in your pocket, maybe on your belt, sort of like a buck 110 on the belt, right? It's not super common, but you're mainly looking at in the pocket for folders. But with fixed blades, there are endless options for how you can carry it, which means it's really adaptable to you, your personal preferences. There are belt sheaths, there are drop sheaths for your belt. You can do appendix or scout carry. You can do a neck knife if you want. You can strap it to a backpack strap or even carry it in your boot. And that's just scratching the surface. There are so many options for carrying a fixed blade. However, despite all of those options and me carrying a fixed blade for 2 years now, I've come to the conclusion that my favorite way is still in the pocket. But when we made a video very similar to this 3.5 or more years ago, the options for pocket carry were actually really scant. Like there wasn't much out there at all. And in the time since that video, the options have just exploded. There are so many new options for pocket sheaths. So let's take a moment and just focus in on EDC fixed blade pocket sheaths for just a second. So about a year ago, I probably would have never even considered using a neck knife, but now pretty much anytime I'm outside, camping, hiking, backpacking, working around my house, I actually really like to have a neck knife on. But for everyday carry, this is not it, because it's kind of weird to be walking around in public and have a knife around your neck. So for EDC, I actually prefer a pocket fixed blade like this one right here, which is the Lookout from one of our channel sponsors, Big Idea Design. This is their American production. Go check it out. You can use coupon code CARRYON for 10% off.
All right, future Ricky here. I think I'm far enough away from Taylor. He's over there playing ping pong. He doesn't even work. So Big Idea Design gave me a code, and the code is carry off. Taylor doesn't pay me enough anyways, so maybe you guys can help me out by using my code instead of his. It'll be our secret. He'll never know. Carry off at checkout gives you the same discount as his. Don't use this code. Use mine.
It's really great, but it also has this awesome little sheath, which has amazing retention. But I keep this pocket sheath right inside the pocket, this tool pocket on my proof pants, which comes from the other channel sponsor, Huckberry. Go check them out. I love these proof pants. They have so much other great stuff. It is your one-stop shop for all things men. Go check it out in the description down below. But while we're on the subject, we should also mention our other channel sponsor, Worksharp. You may have seen it a few weeks ago. We went out with Zach in the wild and hit a box in the Liverpool Gorge. That box has been found, by the way. But you may remember the Worksharp quest. They're doing it again, but this time Zach is driving all over the country and hiding 35 boxes. So go check out Worksharp in the wild on Instagram. See if he's in your area and go find a box. All right. Back to the video. So going back to pocket sheaths, back when we made the video last time, the only thing that was available to my knowledge, there might have been another 1 or 2 clips that I've never even used, but the main one was this right here, the Ulti-Clip. So you would get your knife with a plain sheath, you would have to add an Ulti-Clip to your sheath. And this works really, really well. It's something I still use today, but since then we have had a ton of different options added to the market. For example, one of my favorites now is this right here. This is the DCC clip, or Discreet Carry Concepts clip. It works very similarly to the Ulti-Clip, but it's much easier to get in and out of your pocket if you want to take the whole sheath out. You also have a 3D printed version that's very similar. This one comes from BMKT, or BM Knife and Tool, and it works really well, and it's also cost effective. You also have, if you want to get a little more fancy, the titanium fixed blade pocket clip from Vero Engineering, which works on most standard Kydex sheath hole spacing. And then now people have started making sheaths around some of these clips, just like this one I showed you with the DCC. You have an Ulti-Clip sheath, a DCC sheath, and then there are so many more makers out there now making custom leather sheaths for your knives, so you can commission and have a custom sheath made for your knife, which I'm sure was an option back in the day, but the clips on those kind of sucked. Now that's not really the case, because some makers are even building leather sheaths around really good clips like the DCC. So all that is to say, pocket carry options are through the roof now. There are more now than there have ever been. And just to show you something else really quick, this is a big knife. This is the Lost Trail 5 from Schwarz Knives, and I have just a DCC clip on it. This is a 10-inch knife, and look at this. And it works so well. So you can carry a giant knife in your pocket and it's really not that annoying or in the way. It's just kind of there. Another reason you should EDC a fixed blade over a folder is the ease of maintenance and cleaning. So with a folder, you have all these moving parts and things that can gunk up. You can get dust, grit, and grime in the pivot, and you'll feel it, especially on those knives with bearings. You'll get a lot of grime in there, and it gets really gritty when you try to open and close your knife. And you could use like compressed air and try and blow that out, but if you have to take your knife apart, there is a lot more to be done here and a lot more that can go wrong than if you have a fixed blade. If your fixed blade's dirty, you just wipe it off. That's pretty much it. You just wipe it off. Now, you could get something really, really dirty and get, you know, all sorts of gunk and grime underneath the scales. That can happen. And if you don't clean that, you can get rust underneath the scales. But just look how much faster it is to clean this if you need to. If you need to take the scales off your fixed blade, it's literally that simple. It can be done in a few seconds if your scale doesn't get stuck to your knife. So as you can see here, I have two knives almost totally disassembled. I didn't remove the lock bar insert on this one or the thumb studs, but this is 23 plus parts, so probably about 28. This is 7. Obviously, much easier to clean, much easier to take apart and put back together. This, on the other hand, there's a lot that can go wrong. You can lose 1 or 2 of these body screws, which has happened many times when I'm taking a folder apart. And then you're kind of screwed because replacing those is not exactly the easiest sometimes. So cleaning wise, literally wipe this down, right? Take an alcohol wipe it off, put it back together, move on with your day. This, you have to wipe off each one of these things and then put it back together, sometimes depending on the folder, in a very specific order. You've come a long way, and not all folders have this like order of operations for how things have to go back together. But if you're dealing with something like with a crossbar lock or an axis lock, there's an order of operations to that, and there's a lot that can go wrong beyond just losing a body screw, breaking a spring. There's a lot. So a lot more complex and a lot more to worry about when it comes to keeping it clean and maintaining it versus a fixed blade, which is wipe it down and move on. All right, so here's a perfect example. I had this knife completely back together and it was perfectly centered before, and now it's tuned, but it's completely off center. So this is exactly what I was talking about. All of this is not to say that fixed blades are perfect, right? I don't think anybody feels that way, and they definitely have their drawbacks. The 4 that come to mind are: 1, legal. Depending on where you are, it's not legal to carry fixed blades. In North Carolina, I'm pretty sure it's illegal to conceal carry a fixed blade, so as long as it's exposed and out in the open, you can carry it. But as soon as that goes into a concealed carry option, like a scout carry or in the pocket without a clip, it's a little bit more of a gray area. So legality is a big reason. Number 2, a folding knife comes with your best carry option built in. You don't have to worry about the sheath or anything, but with a fixed blade, sometimes it can be hard to find the right fixed blade and the right sheath combination. Like, you can find a really good carry option and a really good knife, but there's no guarantee those are gonna work together unless you pay somebody, and it could be $100+ to get the thing that you want. So it might cost more than the knife you like to get the sheath that you want for that knife. Number 3 can be explained with this right here: public perception. The reason I don't wear a neck knife out in public is because you get some weird looks. And also, if I'm in a place where normally I could pull out a little folder and cut something really quickly and not get any looks, when you pull out a fixed blade, even if it's a small one, people are like a little bit taken aback sometimes. I don't know why that is, because this is not any more scary than a folder of the same size, but some people just have a weird feeling or get weird around fixed blades. And number 4 is convenience. So while accessibility might be really high for fixed blades, being able to grab your knife quickly, use it, and put it away, convenience is not always a given. So for example, in the summer when it's warmer outside, I tend to wear shorts from time to time, and I don't really like carrying a fixed blade when I have shorts because of slanted pockets and, you know, fewer carry options. I don't have shorts with these tool pockets, although Huckberry does carry them, I just don't have them. But that's not the point. Point is, fixed blades and shorts just don't work as well as they do with pants, in my opinion. So it's not always convenient. So those are 7 reasons you should EDC a fixed blade over a folder. I think it's pretty clear. I was not a believer, right? I did this 3 years ago because people tried to convince me to carry a fixed blade. And I came away from that month with a fixed blade thinking like, it's okay, but I still prefer a folder. Fast forward 3 years and I primarily carry fixed blades every day. I still carry folders, but for the most part, most of my cutting tasks are done with fixed blades. They're not inconvenient, they're not uncomfortable to carry. There are so many options now, and there are tons of benefits over folders. Now, I still love folders, I still carry them, they're still fun and fidgety, and I like all the variety, but my heart is now with fixed blades. So tell me in the comments how you feel about fixed blades. Do you EDC a fixed blade? Do you have them and still just carry folders? Where do you fall on the issue? And that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, carry on. And also everything we talked about, all the knives and cheese and everything will be linked in the description. And that's it. See you guys.